And welcome back to Coast. Dolores Cannon is a regressive hypnotherapist and psychic researcher recording lost knowledge. She's been involved with hypnosis for more than 40 years and exclusively with past life therapy and regression work for a number of years as well. Now, over this time, she's developed her own very unique technique, which enabled her to gain the most efficient release of information from her clients. She's also been a UFO investigator, investigating crop circles in England, accumulating evidence from suspected abductees as well through hypnosis. Now, this is book number 4 in her series, Convoluted Universe. Welcome back, Dolores Cannon. It's been a while, Dolores. How are you?
I'm fine. They said they were having trouble with the line. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you loud and clear.
Oh, because he said it sounded like a muddy a bucket of water.
Well, whatever Tommy did, he must have kicked the phone line. You sound pretty good now.
Okay, I told him it would be okay.
Are you still out there in the Ozarks?
Yeah, when I'm home. I'm still traveling. I'm traveling all over the world constantly, and you happen to catch me when I'm here. I was in Turkey just a few weeks ago, and I did a 2-day seminar in Istanbul.
Good for you. Gosh, I remember, Dolores, when we were talking 15, 16 years ago about conversations with Nostradamus and in your earlier stuff. You were just rolling then, remember?
Oh, yeah, but I'm still rolling.
Yes, you are. Don't stop.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time in China now, in Russia. Last year, I was 3 months in Europe, every week in a different country. And this year is packed just as full. I'm hardly home at all.
What keeps you going, Dolores?
Everybody keeps saying, where do you get your energy from? They'd like a little piece of it.
Well, you do. You sound as energetic now as you did, almost 20 years ago.
Oh, yeah, and I'm still going, and I'm still writing more books.
Well, good for you. Good for you. Now, tell me about this series, Convoluted Universe.
Okay. Well, I've got 17 books out there, and I'm working on 3 more. And each one has got gradually more and more complicated because over the years, my work has been that way. The work I'm getting now, I could not have even understood it even 20 years ago. It has to happen gradually. You get a little piece, a little crumb, then you digest that, and then you get a little more and a little more. So they, the ones that are giving the information through my clients, they give you a new theory and a new idea, so it just keeps growing. But it really began to pick up when I got into the UFO research and I wrote The Custodians. And as I was working with that, and, I think I've talked about all of these subjects on your show.
Oh, you sure have.
But with that one, the ETs began to speak through the clients I was working with. And they began to give me complicated metaphysical theories and concepts. And I knew I had to go into a different kind of a book. So that's when I started the Convoluted Universe series. I thought it was going to be one book, but it developed now into 4. And each book has gotten more and more complicated. At the end of book 3, I said, well, I guess you've told me everything there is to know now. There's nothing else left to discover. And they said, oh, no, you have just started. There's a lot more to find out. And then I wrote Convoluted 4, and the information is still pouring out of my clients.
Well, this was a fascinating one because it deals with just about everything we've talked about on this show. The other side, abductees, UFOs, just about everything. So I'm looking forward to our very lengthy chat with you tonight.
Okay, because it just keeps getting more and more complicated. They keep throwing different ideas out at me.
Have you, by this time, come up with a single theory on just what the heck is going on?
In what area?
Well, just about, let's say in the visitation area. Something's happening.
I wrote 2 books. This was in 2011 when Convoluted 4 came out. That's the first year I wrote 2 books in 1 year. The other book was The 3 Waves of Volunteers and the New Earth. And this is where it was taking the whole UFO thing into a whole new area that hasn't been explored by the other investigators. They haven't got a clue what's really going on out there.
Well, and this one, number 4, deals primarily with extraterrestrial travel, doesn't it?
Well, some, but in the three waves, it goes into a whole lot more about the volunteers and where they've come from, and many of them are ETs that have come from other planets and other dimensions, and entered into a physical bodies. And there's hundreds of thousands of these. Of course, the people themselves are not aware of this until they have the session and they find out.
Now, when you talk about other dimensions, Dolores, are you talking about other universes or strictly other dimensions within this universe?
Within this universe, because this is not the only universe there is. There's hundreds and hundreds of universes. It goes on and on and on. But there are also many, many, many dimensions. There's not just 5. There are thousands. And in each of these dimensions, there's different realities. And they just go, well, see, there are dimensions around us all the time. We can't see them because they are vibrating at a different frequency and different vibration. It's just the way if you see a propeller blade or a fan blade, when it's moving, it speeds up, it becomes invisible. So they're vibrating at a different frequency.
Well, that's a good point. Now, is it still a physical dimension?
Yes, and there are people living in these dimensions. And this is very real. This is the way the ETs, one of the ways they travel, is they go back and forth between these dimensions.
They somehow learned how to do that, I take it.
Oh, yeah. They've been doing it for a long time. They raise the vibrations and frequencies of the craft, and when they're going out of this dimension, see, they raise the frequency, and then they will suddenly just disappear and be in the other dimension. Kind of like Star Trek, when he says, engage, and they're gone. This is when people see UFOs and they just suddenly disappear. They have gone into the other dimension. And the other opposite is true, too. When they're coming into our dimension, they have to lower the vibration and frequency. And then they just suddenly appear where there hasn't been anything there before. This is the densest, heaviest planet in the universe, the hardest, most difficult planet to live on. They said they can't go any lower, any denser. We are the bottom. And my daughter doesn't like me to say that because it sounds like we're the bottom feeders.
Well, let me ask you this. By the traveling through these other dimensions, must you be in a craft, or can you do it in like a portal and kind of like walk through it?
Oh, yes, there are definitely portals and windows. Those are two different things, and they are all over the world. And the ETs especially have found these and are able to utilize them. A portal is where you can go through it and be in another dimension, another time. You can time travel. All of these are used. And some humans have been able to use them. The problem is with humans is the vibration and frequency of the body has to match the frequency of the portal, or the body would be destroyed. The matrix would be destroyed. So these ETs have learned how to utilize these, and they travel through time and other dimensions in that way. A window is where you can look through at other dimensions and other times, but you can't travel through it. And these are everywhere. And they're usually protected to keep humans away because they know the effect it would have on humans.
Well,
but also humans go to other dimensions constantly and are not even aware of it.
Do we do that in a dream state, or
no? Physically,
we do.
Don't know it. This is how it's very natural, and it's happening all the time, and we don't even realize it.
Of course, I'm sure some people have been in a fog sometimes, Dolores. Maybe that's what's happened to them, huh?
Well, I've gotten lots of emails. I have a weekly radio show, too.
Yes, you do.
And I get all these emails, people telling me these remarkable stories of things where they have accidentally gone into other dimensions.
At what point did these stories start arriving to you, and you started saying, there's something going on here?
Well, in my investigations, I guess the listeners are well aware of me now. They know I don't channel. I'm not a psychic.
Right.
All my information comes from my clients, and I never know what's going to come out. But I am so curious that I always want to know everything. I hear something I don't understand. I want to know more about it. But I can give you a few examples.
Sure, I'd love to hear
stories.
them. Okay.
people gotten? Well, for instance, sometimes it can be something very subtle, and you don't even realize you've crossed over in another dimension and came back. I had a college girl said she was coming out of her dorm, and there was a lot of construction work going on right in the street in front of the dormitory. And, you know, the orange cones up and the construction equipment, they were tearing up the street. Okay, the next morning she comes out of her dormitory. There's no sign of anything that's ever been done. These are little things we'll say, well, maybe it was my imagination, or they'll see a tree in one place. The next time they go by, that tree is not there. These are little things that we just don't really notice until it draws our attention.
But it's pretty similar, so that confuses them, I take it.
Yeah, and they said, well, it must be my imagination. I had one person who came out of the office building where they were working, and they were back in the, 20, 40 years, 50 years ago. The street, the cars, the people were all dressed as though they were in the 1950s and 40s. And they were very confused. They were walking down the street, and they kept saying people weren't even paying attention to them. But then they began to get scared because something wasn't right. So they went back to the office building. And when they went back up into it, everything returned to normal. See, sometimes it's very dramatic like that.
Do these other people in these other dimensions see the person who's gone in there?
Well, they said it didn't seem like they were paying any attention to them.
So it sounds like they didn't even see them.
Yeah.
To me.
I had one person that said they were out at the airport watching the jets take off. And the jet would take off and get into the air, then it would go backwards, then it would go forwards, then it would go backwards. And, you know, jets can't do that.
That's right.
Before they suddenly just took off. This happened several times. Then they went out to the street. The cars were doing the same thing. So it's kind of like sometimes you're stuck. That's what I think it is. You're kind of on the perimeter of the dimensions, and it hasn't quite solidified. But I've had many, many stories of strange things like that. One woman said she was out jogging, and she was running down the street, and she saw this airplane coming in so low to the ground, and it was a big airliner, so low to the ground that she said, it's going to crash. She could see the tail and the wings and everything. She turned around and ran back to the house to turn on the news because she thought surely there was a crash. Well, when we had our session, this is one of the things she wanted to find out about. What was that all about? So during the session, we found, they said, in another reality, another dimension, there was an airport over there. And the plane was just coming in for a landing. So she had temporarily crossed into the dimension where the airport existed, but it didn't exist in our dimension.
How did they get back, Dolores?
They just come back. They said we're doing this all the time and we don't even realize it, unless something like that stands out in your
Have you left? Let's assume I'm talking to you physically.
Yeah.
We're there, right? I'm back in St. Louis and you're there for a conference or something.
Yeah.
And I somehow stumble into another dimension. Am I still physically in the original dimension talking to you, or am I gone?
Well, that's complicated because they've told me sometimes, and I don't understand how, that I have disappeared from crowds of people when I'm in other countries. And according to me, I didn't realize there was any difference. But let me tell you a strange one that it deals with this program.
All right.
It was back when I was doing Art Bell.
Okay.
You know, in those days, a lot of times the people didn't like to stay up late, so they had these long playing tapes.
That's right.
And after one of the shows, I got the letter, and there was these 3 different women. It was in Tennessee, and they always listened to the show. And they said they all had the long playing tapes going all night because they didn't want to stay up late. The next morning, the one woman turned it on to listen to the show, and the show wasn't on. It was a sports game instead. but she knew it was the same
station. Yeah,
because they kept giving the call letters of the station. The other woman, same thing happened to her, and they called the station and they said, "No, we're not carrying Art Bell anymore, and we don't intend to anymore. We don't broadcasting that." They called the third one. She had the show, and it was the same station. One got it, and the others didn't.
So in another dimension, they had the show, and another they didn't.
Yeah, because they said, "We've got to we can prove it to you. We can bring you the tapes." And it was about a couple of weeks later, I was giving a lecture in Tennessee. They all showed up. And they said, "We had to come and tell you this really happened."
That's a
and they
great
were
story.
older women. There was no reason for them to lie. And they said, "We have the tapes to prove the show just did not exist for those two women."
I hope now in all dimensions, Dolores, we exist.
I
and
hope
we're there.
it is broadcasting everywhere.
Everywhere. Well,
that's what I mean, the strange things that happen, and we chalk it up to, well, that's weird, you know.
You know, we talk a lot about shadow people. I'm always convinced that they've come from another dimension, and they may or may not know that they're here in ours. Is that possible?
Yes, I've had many cases with my clients. One said she remembered waking up in the middle of the night, and she could have sworn that her father and her brother were arguing right in the front room. She could hear them loud and clear, but they couldn't have been there. They was in their own house. And when we asked about that, they said she had slipped into another dimension where that was happening. This is what people don't realize. We are existing in many, many places at the same time.
Is this something we should be afraid of, Dolores?
It's natural. There's no way you can stop it. It's a natural phenomenon. What are you going to do about it? We're just finding out because I think now we're more curious. We want to know answers. Or before we just brush it off as, well, that's unusual.
Well, you know, scientists are beginning to learn a little more about dark matter, dark energy.
Yeah.
Who's to say that this isn't all tied together?
It is all tied together. All of it is. But I know people have these strange experiences, but they just because they remember it. Otherwise, well, I'll give you a weird example. They said, you know how sometimes you'll walk into a room and you stop for a minute, you forget what you went in there to get.
Yeah.
And then you turn around and you go back and then you remember.
And you remember go back in again.
Yeah, you go back and find whatever it was you were looking for. And they said in that fraction of a second, you have gone into another dimension and come back.
Interesting.
So how can you stop something like that?
Interesting. Dolores, stay with us. We're going to come back in a moment. Our special guest tonight here on Coast to Coast AM is Dolores Cannon. And welcome back to Coast to Coast. We'll take your calls a little bit later on with Dolores Cannon. Notice that the phone lines are almost all packed already, Dolores, and we're not even ready to take calls with you. You have talked about, in Convoluted Universe, 3 waves of people you call volunteers. Explain that.
Okay, that's the whole book I wrote on that. It was too much to put in Convoluted 4. The book is called The 3 Waves of Volunteers in the New Earth. Well, I don't want to go into too much detail because it's a long story.
Give me the highlights.
But you know, with my other work, that I've found that the ETs are the ones who have created life on Earth. And they've been watching over us since the beginning of time.
Okay.
And when life was created on Earth, they just did every step of it all the way. And when life was created, they said, let's give this beautiful planet a creature with free will and see what he does with it. And then they also said, by the way, we're the only planet in the universe that has free will. I've had a lot of my subjects go to other planets in past lives where there is no free will. And believe me, they couldn't wait to get out of there. It's not as good as you think it is. But we were given free will to see what we were going to do with it. But also there was another directive. It's the Prime Directive. And it's mentioned in Star Trek, and Star Trek is not fiction, it's real. And that is the Prime Directive of non-interference, meaning when you create a civilization, you cannot interfere with the development of that civilization. They just have to watch. That's why many of the ETs are called the Watchers. They've been watching us from the beginning of time and just shaking their head. What are these silly kids doing now?
Yet some people have said, Dolores, if, for example, somebody launched a nuke, they'd get involved. They'd do something.
Yes,
they've been seen around sites.
That's what I'm leading up to.
Okay,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, because the only time they can interfere, if we get to the point where we're going to blow up the planet, they cannot allow that because it would have reverberations throughout the galaxy. So it cannot be allowed. It would disturb everything in the civilizations and other dimensions. So if that ever got to that point, it would have to be stopped. Now, there's been many, many other civilizations down through time where they have had to stop it. The last one, of course, was Atlantis, but there were many other civilizations before that. When it got to the point they were going to destroy the world, they had to be stopped. But it takes too long to build a civilization up again, so they don't want to do it now. We've come so far. So everything was going along until the end of World War II, when we dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima. Then they said, we better get down there and find out what these kids are playing with. And when they saw it, they said they knew we couldn't handle it because we were not supposed to have atomic energy yet. It was not supposed to be given to the Earth until it could be used for good. And I said, well, it is used for good. And they said, no, because it was created as a weapon.
That's true.
It will always have that aura of negativity around it. So it would never really be used for its full potential. So they knew that we couldn't handle it. The ones who have been on Earth forever, going through all these lives, were all caught on the wheel of karma, coming back, repaying karma. And we're stuck. And they said, these humans can't even take care of their own lives. How are they going to be able to handle something this big? They will end up destroying the world. So they didn't know what to do. They can't just come in and say, stop it. That's interference. So there are councils over everything, and there's rules and regulations that govern everything. So everything is really in order out there, whether you think it is or not. So they went back to the council, and they said, what are we going to do? We can't interfere. And they came up with a plan that I think is absolutely brilliant.
Okay, what is that?
They said, we can't interfere from the outside, but what if we influence from the inside? What if we put out a call for volunteers, pure souls who have never been to Earth, who have never been contaminated with karma, who are fresh and pure? What if we ask those kind of souls to come in and bring the energy necessary to help the Earth?
To bring a little change.
Yeah, because they knew we were going into the new Earth when everything is going to be different if we didn't blow ourselves up. So they said, let's ask for volunteers to come. Then we aren't interfering. They are agreeing to come and help the Earth and the time it's needed. So they put out the call. Now, this theory came about through many years of my work. It didn't happen just through one person. I began to see more and more clients who were telling me the same story. And, if you get the same information from a lot of people, it's got to have validity.
Well, something's going on. Now,
they can't all make these stories up.
Were these humans that had these pure souls
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Because none of these people know this consciously. It's never on a conscious level, because when you come into the Earth body, you forget. You forget your plan,
Right.
You forget your contracts, you forget all of it.
You're a human. That's it.
Yeah, you're a human. You're here to have a human experience. So they came in, and they don't really know why they don't want to be here, why they don't like it here, why they don't fit in. But I began getting the story again and again and again. I don't want to be here. I don't like it here. Why are people so mean to each other? Why is there so much violence? And it's the same thing over and over, and I was hearing it again and again. I want to go home. I don't know where home is. I just know it's not here. Now, you hear that from hundreds of people. You begin to put it together. And I put together the theory of the three waves based on the ages of these people that were telling me the same stories. And when I took them back to past lives, they didn't go back to the normal past life. And I'm still getting them. I just had a client yesterday. The same thing is continuing to happen.
Now, when you talk about the waves and their ages, so a certain, like a wave 1 would be what?
Well, you remember, right at the end of World War II is when there was suddenly this big UFO flap.
Right.
That's because they came in to find out what was going on. Then we had the baby boomer generation right at the end of the war.
Sure. I'm one of them.
Yeah, this is the first wave. Now, not all of them, but but some of them, the majority of the ones have come in because that was the age that they were coming in right after the war. And so that would make them now even in their early 60s.
Sure.
And I've been working with this since the 1980s, so I've seen them gradually age. So the first wave, I think, goes like that, maybe early, late 40s, 50s, and 60s, that age group.
Okay. And that first wave, anything special about them?
Well, they had the hardest time of all. And I asked them one time, why did they have it harder than the second wave? They said, because somebody has to be the first, the trailblazer, the pioneer, to set the way. That's why it was so difficult. The ones that came after had it easier. But they're the ones that had the hardest time wanting to be here. They didn't like it. They don't like the violence. One thing about these waves is that if strong emotions frighten them, they can't handle it. Now, this can be fear, hate, anger, even strong love. They don't know how to handle it because they don't have the background that the normal person born on earth has through many lifetimes. So they can't handle strong emotions. Sometimes they don't get married because they just can't be around other people, and they don't want to have children because children tie you to the earth. And when these souls come in, they come in with like a coating or a covering over their soul so they will not accumulate karma. So they just want to do their job and get out of here. But many of these, the first wave especially, don't want to be here. They keep saying they want to go home, and many of the first wave have tried to commit suicide to get out.
Gosh, was it that frustrating for them, Dolores?
Oh, yeah. They have good families. They got good jobs. They just don't like it here. They don't know, what am I doing here? I don't belong. I don't understand my family. I don't understand this world. And, you hear it again and again. They think they're the only ones out there that feel this way. But since I've been talking about this and the book has come out, I hear this all over the world. And I get emails where people saying, finally, somebody understands. I thought I was the only one in the world that felt that way. Now I'm finding out there's hundreds and hundreds of people feel the same way.
So that's the first wave.
Yeah.
What's the second wave?
Okay, but anyway, whenever I'm doing the sessions with them and I ask them, well, if you didn't like it here, why did you come? They said, I volunteered. They all say I volunteered.
That's right. None of them were forced.
Yeah, they said they heard the call. Earth is in trouble. Who wants to go and help the Earth? And one of them said, I stupidly raised my hand. As they got here, what was I thinking?
I'd probably do that, too. Interesting mission.
Because they really wanted to help the Earth. And this is what helps them. When they find out they are here for a purpose, even though they don't want to be here, it makes a huge difference in their life.
And are they unconsciously helping the Earth?
They are, and that's what makes the difference when they find out they do have a mission, they have a job, then they can understand it and relax.
Could they be the ones that open the door for another person, little things like that?
So what it is, especially the second wave, the second wave would be, 20s, 30s, 40s, that age group.
Okay.
Some of these overlap, so it's hard to be distinctive about the ages. Those are people, the second wave, I call them antennas, generators, receivers, because all they are is a channel of energy. And the energy comes in, they have this wonderful energy that everybody can feel. They don't even know they're sending it out. These are the kind of people who can walk through a crowded mall of people or a store or something, and their energy will affect everybody they come into contact, and it's done in a very positive way. They don't know they're doing it, but that's their purpose. They will ask me, well, why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? And they're told you don't have to do anything. You just have to be. You're generating this energy that is helping the world. And the thing is, they're supposed to be with people and helping people, but they don't like people. They don't like to be around them. So many of these second wave especially work out of their homes. They don't usually get married. They just don't want to be around people.
Interesting.
Because it bothers them.
And these traits are all pretty similar, aren't they?
They what?
These traits of these people, they're all pretty similar.
Oh, yeah, and that's what the people, when I'm giving lectures, they start crying. They come up to me afterwards and they said, you don't know what it means to find out I'm not different. This makes so much sense. And but one thing about these people, I want to find out too. Well, see, many of them come direct from God, who have never been in any kind of a body before. They just never wanted to.
These are brand new souls.
Brand new. Can you imagine what that would be like to come into this mess we have on Earth with no preparation? They don't know what's going on. It's very difficult to exist here. The other place they come from, were ETs on spacecraft, on other planets, other dimensions. Some of them had even evolved as far as being a light being. Now, they were perfectly happy with their own life. But then they said, well, who wants to volunteer? And they said, okay, I'll do it. Then when I get done, I'm going to go back to my spaceship or my other planet. They just said they'll come in long enough to help the Earth during this time of need that we're in right now. But something interesting about this is why it puts a new slant on the UFOs, is that the energy, you can imagine, is so different from the ET energy of that being from the Earth body. So in order for them to be born on Earth, the soul has to be prepared, and especially the mother's energy has to be prepared so they can carry that energy of that new soul. Now, many times the mother will have as many as 3 miscarriages because the energy just doesn't match until they can make adjustments. And the ETs are what do this. They make adjustments to the mother and to the incoming soul so it can survive here. And they said, now some of this sounds strange, but they said in these cases, all of the incoming soul doesn't come in at one time. It's too much energy. So it comes in little by little, and the child may be as old as 8 years old before the entire soul is into the body.
Interesting.
Where it can handle it. And I have a lot of people who tell me, I wasn't here really until I was 8 years old, and they don't understand what that means. But can you see the difference?
So they really weren't complete at that point.
Yeah, they weren't all there. And you can see how the mother's energy would be so different. And many of them have told me that. My mother had many miscarriages before I finally came in.
And these are totally 100% human beings. They're not like hybrids, right? They're not ET mixes. They're
just living in a human body.
Okay.
But many of us have also lived in other lives and other planets. I don't find that unusual at all. They're just another vehicle. I call the costume a body of suit of clothes you wear to live a life.
How do we know if we're volunteers? Do you have to do it through regression?
Well, that's about the only way to find out, except some people tell me I remember volunteering. But I know, but to give this lecture at one place I gave the lecture, and they said, how can you tell who in the audience is ETs? And everybody started laughing, and I said, how can I tell you? They don't even know themselves.
That's right.
Because, see, you forget when you come in.
And they don't possess any special mystical powers. They can't levitate. They can't do things like that.
No. They're just living a life that they're wondering what in the world they're doing here.
But they're a little more spiritual than most.
I think they are, because some of them have found out they have psychic abilities. And if they develop that, because sometimes in children you tend to squish that, But many of them are psychic. They have spiritual qualities. A lot of them want to be healers. That's an interesting trait about them. They all want to help each other. They want to help the world.
They want to help the world. Well, that's why they're here.
And they're very good people. But now can you understand what the abductions are all about? These are their own people that they're taking care of.
These are the volunteers that they're abducting.
They check on them. They have to check on them regularly to make sure that the body is accepting the energy, that they're not having any problems.
That makes sense. And the third wave, I assume, a much younger age.
That's the new kids.
That's the new ones. Okay.
And those are the ones that are the hope of the world. And they're coming in with the DNA already in place because all of our DNA is being changed now anyway.
How many of them are we talking about worldwide, Dolores? Hundreds, millions, what?
Oh, they said hundreds of thousands. They said now we have finally have the critical mass. We have tipped the scale. Now we can save the earth.
So what happens if you get one of these, I'll call them enlightened volunteers. What happens if you get one of them in political office? They become senators or presidents.
It would be the best thing that could possibly happen.
I would guess they would change things dramatically, wouldn't they?
You would. But can you see now why the abductions are occurring? And people, the other investigators don't get their subjects deep enough to find out these things. They keep them in the light level of trance where they're not getting the whole story. I work in the deepest possible level of trance where the conscious mind cannot interfere. So the other ones are getting the emotion, the distorted memories that are not the real memories of the event because they're coming through the conscious mind filter. But if I get them into the deepest level, these stories come out. And the ETs are just taking care of their own people. That's why they have the implants are there to monitor them so they'll know where they are and they can be there to help them at any time.
Let's talk a little bit more about that, Dolores. We're coming right back on Coast to Coast AM with Dolores Cannon. And welcome back with Dolores Cannon. Dolores, it makes sense that these alien implants are put in their own kind, basically, to track them, doesn't it?
But there are other reasons, too, and we found out the reasons for all the transplants.
How come? What they want?
The implants, I mean. The one is to find them so you don't know where they are, but other times they have to monitor the energy of the body to make sure how it is, how they are dealing with the energy. But also, if they have any physical problems, some of the implants are like time-released pills, time-released aspirins. Like these have the contact pills. They're releasing medication into the body over long periods of time to heal the body. And that's why they're in different parts of the body.
Are they?
There are, I know one, Dr. Lear takes these out.
Yes.
But I know one person that had it taken out, and they said for the first time in their life they got sick. So I'm just telling them if they want them there, they're going to put them back. So they're for a good purpose.
Are they concerned about the direction of this planet?
Oh, definitely. That's what this is all about, why they're doing this. But that's why they are monitoring all of us, because they're very concerned, they have been for many years, with the increase in cancer and the different diseases that we're having.
Yeah.
And they're developing cures for these different diseases. Because, you see, we were supposed to be a perfect people on a perfect, beautiful planet that would never get sick and never die. But there was something that happened way back in the development stage. There was a meteorite that hit the Earth at that time while the species was developing. And for the first time, it introduced bacteria that created disease. And after that, they knew their experiment was ruined. We were called the Grand Experiment. And they had to go back to the council. What do we do now? Do we just call it quits and say this, erase the whole program? Or do we start over again? Or do we let it keep developing, knowing it will never be as perfect as it was supposed to be? And it was decided because so much work had already been put into it to let it continue developing it. And so they are still trying to find cures so that we will be the perfect people they intended us to be.
Now, it's not to say, though, that every enlightened person on this planet is one of these volunteers, right? I mean, there could be some nice, pure Earthlings, right?
Oh, sure. But it's all for a reason anyway. And people shouldn't worry about it because you don't know your soul history anyway. It was interesting, that commercial you were just giving about tracking your ancestry.
Yeah.
You said tracking the new souls with that way. Doesn't work that way because, see, all you're tracking is the physical body and where it came from, the genetic makeup of the body. You can't track the makeup of the soul to find out where that comes from.
I wish we could.
Only way I found is just through past life regression.
So generally these volunteers, which are pure souls, they've not been on the planet before. Once that physical body that they're in dies, what happens to them? Do they come back again? Are they offered the opportunity to come back? What happens?
Well, they don't have to come back because it's like a one-time thing. I will just volunteer to come and help the earth right now. That's why they try to keep from accumulating karma so they don't have to come back. That when they die, they go to the same place we all go. We go to the spirit side. And then they say, well, what do you want to do now? Do you want to go back to the life you were living, or do you want to continue? It's up to them.
Do any of them say, I kind of like that life on good old planet Earth?
Oh, no. Some of them are saying, most of them saying, I don't want to be here. I want to go home, and this isn't home. But they have a lot of advisors on the spirit side, and they help them sort through this whenever they die. When anybody dies, you go through the council, and they do a life review, and you figure out what you're going to do next. What
can you tell us, Dolores, about this council? How many planets are members, anything like that?
Oh, you're talking about several councils here. They're different kinds. The councils I was talking about is on the spirit side. That's a different thing.
Okay.
The councils are the other over the planets.
Okay.
On the spirit side, there's a council you go before when you die. And they do a life review and help you decide what you're going to do next. That's when you're in the spirit side. But the other councils, they have councils over planets, councils over solar systems, councils over galaxies, councils over universes. And these councils have very special rules and regulations that you cannot go against. You have to abide by these rules and regulations. That's why I don't find the negativity. In all my years of working with this, I've never found a negative case because I said I go into the deep level and we go to what's really happening, and you find out the real causes of it. So these councils, some of them I say are councils of 9, some are councils of 12, but they are the ones who make the rules and regulations and make sure that they are abided by.
How do you get on the council? I mean, will we as a planet ever get there?
They want us to. They said we are isolated over here. We're just a little bitty planet, but we're isolated over here in this part of the solar system for a definite reason. They're afraid of us, really.
Why?
We're so violent. They said nobody else does the things we do. People don't kill each other just to kill.
I always thought we were like a prison planet. That all the planets that were Earth-like dumped their horrible people on our planet.
Well, they've said this is the most difficult planet in the universe to live on because it's so dense and so heavy. And you come to Earth to learn emotions and limitations. And it's a very difficult planet to learn to live on. But you agreed to come here. Nobody forces you. And a lot of times they'll warn you before you're coming in. Are you sure you want to go there?
Try to talk you out of it. Huh?
Yeah, don't you know what it's like there? It's much better on these other planets. But if they insist, no, I want to go and try it out. These are the ones that aren't even volunteers. They just say, I want to try it out and see what it's like.
Well, now here you are. You're enlightened. You're a regressive hypnotherapist. You understand what's going on. How do we know you're not part of the first wave?
I'm not. I'm too old for that.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
How old are you?
Now, you said you're old enough to be part of the first wave.
I'm a baby boomer.
Okay, you're a baby boomer.
So you're older.
I'm a great-great-grandmother.
Well, good for you.
So, I mean, I'm too old to be that.
Okay, so how did someone like you...
I know a lot of my past lives anyway, so I know I'm not one of the first waves.
Okay,
anyhow.
but you're enlightened. I mean, you are. I've known you for years. You're an enlightened person. How'd you get that way?
I don't know. I was busy raising a family and living a normal life when all of this happened in the 1960s. So that's why I've been doing it for 45 years.
What if there's a wave before the first wave?
Well, some people have told me they're in their late 60s and they have some of these characteristics. And we were told there may have been a few, forerunners that came in. But no, I can see through my past lives the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing. So to me, I know I'm not a first wave. I'm just a reporter, an investigator, a researcher of lost knowledge.
Well, you've explained abductions pretty good because, a lot of people can't figure out what's going on. Is government doing it? Are ETs doing it? Are they mean? Who knows what's going on? I could understand them coming back to monitor their own.
Yeah, and taking care of their own because they know how difficult it is to live here.
Now, that doesn't explain the hybrid thing where people...
Well, yes, it does.
How so? That people think
everything.
that they're making hybrid babies, for example.
Yeah. But those are not for Earth.
No, they're taking them where?
To other planets that need the DNA. This is one of the reasons they've explained why they're taking the eggs and sperms, because we have developed as a civilization, as a species, the bodies have developed to handle radiation and handle a lot of extreme conditions in the Earth atmosphere.
Are we unique in the universe in terms of being physical?
I wouldn't say so. There's, like they said, we're kind of the bottom of the barrel.
Okay, so there's...
But they said our bodies have developed to handle conditions that it's effective with our DNA and the eggs and things like that. So they take these to other planets that are experiencing the same conditions but don't have the ability to adapt, and those civilizations could go down. So they're introducing the new DNA, the eggs and the sperms, to help those different species on other planets.
Got an email from a fellow earlier today who wanted you to know that he doesn't believe that there's life after death, that it just ends. What do you tell somebody like that?
I said, I have regressed thousands and thousands and thousands of people. I have not found anybody yet who didn't have a past life and who didn't go to the other side. What does he think he's doing here if he didn't come from somewhere else?
That's exactly what I emailed him back. I said, explain your existence. Is it a fluke? Why are you here? I haven't heard back yet from him on that one.
Because that's what I'm saying. I think it would be an awful way to believe. Of course, everybody's entitled to their own beliefs, but I think it would be awful to believe that this was it, and when you died, that's the end. This is all you could do. You would never get a chance to make it better, to make amends. I think it would be an awful way to exist and to think like that. But, people are entitled to think whatever they want. But, no, I've never found anyone who had gone to the spirit side when they died and who have not had a past life.
Let's talk about some of the past life.
Even people who don't even believe in this, don't believe in God, don't believe in anything, they still get their answers.
They do?
Definitely.
All right. So
they don't have to believe in it. So this guy, we had a session with him. I think he'd be very surprised.
Would you put him under?
Well, I'd have a long talk with him. Let me give you an example, because you were going to go into that.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
I had a man, he came with his girlfriend. His girlfriend was the one who wanted the session. This guy was a lawyer, very practical, very, against anything like this. He only came along for support for his girlfriend. But while he was there, he just said, I don't know, why don't you do me too? Just to see.
Yeah.
I don't think anything's going to happen. He didn't believe in God. He didn't believe there was any such thing as reincarnation. When you die, you die. So I kept thinking, this is going to be interesting. So we had the session with him. He goes through past life. I don't remember what it was, but it was a very normal past life. And when he dies, he goes to the spirit side. All these other spirits come out to meet him, and they're all excited and talking to him. Tell us what happened. What was this life like? Tell us what went on. And then another one come up. Remember me? We lived in this life way back this other time. You see, he got exactly what he needed for his belief system.
He sure did.
He couldn't deny it after that because he was all prepared to just make it up, and he couldn't.
Do you believe, though, in the hell concept, Dolores? Is that real?
There is no such thing as hell.
How about evil?
Evil is what people do. Everything is energy. They've told me many times there is no bad, there is no good. There's just lessons, and what do you learn from the lessons? If you take the energy and use it in a negative way, you can call it evil, but that's people using it and doing it. That's what evil comes from. The
serial killer who dies, what happens to his soul?
Well, there's many different theories on this. It depends on how bad the murder is. But sometimes they have to go into what is called the spiritual hospital. There's a lot of places on the spirit side. The spiritual hospital is where they're worked on, and it takes a lot of very brave spirits to be able to do this because it's very hard to turn these souls around. They're not allowed to come back to an earth life until they finally understand what they did. But an average murderer, when he dies and comes back, I've had many cases where the people have murdered each other in another life, and they come back to pay the karma back. It's not you killed me, so I kill you, because that just keeps the wheel of karma going. That's not the best way to do it. But suppose, with what they call the soft way, suppose you came back into a life and had to take care of your victim, and you could not have a normal life. That's the soft way. You pay it back by sacrificing your life for another.
Well, is that what we call karma?
Yeah, it's repaying tons of karma is what it is. And I've had many cases of this. Husband and wife will come in, or usually I had one with a mother and a daughter, and they said, we don't get along at all. You got to take my daughter in there and fix her. Find out what's going on. We cannot get along. And when I had the session, I found out from the daughter that they were husband and wife in another lifetime, and the husband had killed her. And so they're coming back now to repay this. And the mother had been the husband, and so she's still carrying a lot of anger, and she's very hard to live with. Well, she's not getting getting it. She's not paying back the karma very well. But I have many cases of where somebody's killed each other in another lifetime. They come back in this lifetime to try to work it out and repay it.
Where do angels fit into this, Dolores?
They're the messengers.
So you believe in angels?
Oh, yes. We've had a lot of this. All of this stuff has come up. None of it is new. My curiosity, I always want to know everything. No, the angels are the messengers. It'd be very, very rare that any of them would ever incarnate in a body. They're here to take care of us and to help us if we need help. Because when you're born, you have what you want to call a guide or a guardian angel.
Assigned to us.
Yeah, assigned to you, whatever you want to call it. Some countries I've been to don't believe in the term guardian angels, but say a guide. It's assigned to you, and it must be with you your whole life. So you're never, ever alone. You don't know how many people I get that say, oh, I'm alone. There's nobody. You're never alone. So when you die, you're never alone. They're always with you. But any time in your life you need help, they're there to help you. Now, you can have deceased relatives or friends be a guide if they want to volunteer to do that. Otherwise, they are these ones that are assigned to you to help you all through your life. But a lot of times, angels will come just to give you a message, just to give you something you need or to help you in a difficult time. That's all they are. They're messengers.
Do they come in your dream state a lot?
They can, but sometimes they'll appear looking like a normal person. I've had many people talk about angels saving them. They may be in a car wreck or going to have a car wreck, and these people just appear. And then after the danger is over, they disappear. They're just gone out of the crowd or something. There's many stories of this.
You turn to thank the person, and he's nowhere to be found.
Yeah, he's gone. And they appear when they needed to help you, and then they're gone. So angels have a lot of very important jobs. But they can also deliver messages in dreams if you want to think that way.
This is a vast universe, Dolores.
Oh, tell me about it.
With so many things that are going on. What do you think to people who just aren't believers? What would shock them with all of this?
Well, sometimes I get skeptics at my lectures, but it's getting fewer and fewer. Now we have so many people believing in this open, I don't get very many skeptics anymore. But if I do get one, I just listen to what they say, and I always say, I respect your beliefs. And then I just go on with what I'm talking about. It's no good to start an argument with them because they believe what they want to believe, and you can't make anybody believe anything. I present the information. If they take it, good. If they don't, that's their free will. Maybe someday it'll sink in, plant some seeds anyway.
Dolores, where do you get your book, The Convoluted Universe?
Where do I get
Book
them? They're
4.
available everywhere.
The bookstores, you name it. Amazon?
All over the world. But also you can get them from our website if you want to. Amazon, they're available everywhere. All the bookstores have them, and if they don't, just tell them the title and they will order it.
All right. Well, stay with us. More to talk with you about, Dolores. I want to get your take on things like the pyramids. Dolores Cannon with us. Dolores, do you think time travel will be possible?
Oh, it's already being experimented on. You know that.
Oh, sure.
You know, the government's been experimenting with it for many, many years. And, you know, there is the theory that a lot of these ETs that are coming are us in the future. And I've had cases of that. See, it's not only just volunteers. We have ET other cases that I've worked on. And sometimes they are us coming back from the future to see what's going on here.
Or to warn us?
Oh, yeah, a lot of times it is to warn us. In one of my books, there was a case of that where we had destroyed the surface of the earth and were living underneath the earth in an ant farm type existence. And the idea was to come back and tell us, don't let this happen, change the future. But a lot of times they just come back to see, like we would do if we were able to time travel. We'd probably go into the past just to look and see what things were like.
Well, that's true.
But I know it's possible because, you know, there's no such thing as time anyway. The ETs have said, you know, it's all an illusion. Time is an illusion. The ETs have said we're the only species in the universe has found a way to measure something that does not exist.
Dolores, Michael Cremo believes that humankind might be hundreds of millions of years old, not what present-day scientists think. What are your thoughts on that and the kind of technology we might have had in the past? I mean, I'm still marveled by the pyramids, for example. I don't think we could build them today. We
couldn't. But like I said earlier, there have been many, many civilizations before ours. And of course, when they went down, there's not a trace left of them. And I have had people go back to these. The Atlantis was the last one, but there were many, many before that. And one of them was destroyed. See, always happens with the scientists are messing around with things they're not supposed to be. And we had developed the minds to a tremendous capacity. In one of these civilizations, they burned a hole in the ozone layer. Oh, doesn't that sound familiar?
Yeah, sure does.
And the sun came through and scorched the earth and killed everybody at that time. This is one of the things that created the deserts in Africa. But there were times when we had tremendous civilizations, and many of them went down, and they're at the bottom of the ocean. Other ones are buried under mountains and piles of mud and dirt that we will never find any clue that they were ever there. So we have many, many times we have risen and fallen. Not just now. It does go back thousands and thousands and thousands of years.
Are you a fan of Edgar Cayce?
Uh-huh.
Hall of Records? Do you think they exist?
Oh, I know they exist, and I know where they are.
Now, he said there were 3 of them, 3 halls of records. I'm going to find out where you think they are. But he said one was in Bimini, where Atlantis might have been, Central America, and at the base of the Sphinx. What do you say?
Well, what I've been told is at the Sphinx.
Okay.
And that they're underground cities, too. There's a whole civilization underground.
Near the Sphinx?
Well, the entrances to these civilizations are underneath pyramids all over the world. And, there's many pyramids found everywhere.
Yes.
So the entrances are underneath the pyramids. But all of these things were put in before the pyramids and the Sphinx were put there. But, yeah, they said the Hall of Records is underneath the Sphinx. And I have a friend who has been down there many times, down into the caverns underneath the Sphinx, trying to help them define these places. Interesting thing is when they go down there, it's always full of water. But when she finally got down there, this one time, the water wasn't there, and she was able to find doors and tunnels. So there's definitely things underneath the Sphinx. But that's where the Hall of Records is. But the information I have is that it's protected by an energy field. So only the right kind of a person will ever be able to find it and to go in and be able to read these things.
What might those Hall of Records possess?
They said they are the history of the world, the history of our beginnings, of mankind. Everything is in these records. But they're written in a strange language, too, that would take a lot of deciphering because it's so old.
Would they talk about a God?
Well, they all believed in God. They've always believed in God.
Well, that's true, too.
The ETs are closer to God than we will ever be.
Do you think the ETs, though, are still trying to figure out how they were created?
Well, they know how they were created because they're one of the creators. I said they are closer to God than they will ever be because many of them don't consume food. They live off of light, and they have to take light baths to replenish the body. And I asked them, well, where does the light come from? He said it comes from the source. This is what they call God. They call God the source.
Interesting.
And without that, they would die.
The light, almost like a plant.
Well, it's absorbing light into the body. And many species live off of light. They don't consume. So a lot of our organs in the body have atrophied. This is why, we see the body, we just see the way it looks after it is developed. Like they said, it could be us in the future, too, as we develop that way, and if our organs were to atrophy from not being used.
Dolores, I've always wondered what deja vu might be.
That's easy.
Is that a dimension cross or something?
Yeah, because, all of these dimensions, we were talking about dimensions earlier, the past, present, and future are all existing at the same time. And, of course, the future is probable futures and possibilities. So there are many, many, many possible futures. But deja vu is when you have the feeling, I've been there before, I've done this before. And in that instant, you have actually gone back to that time or forward to that time, wherever it exists, because you just get a glimpse of it. And that's that feeling of, I've been here before, I've done this before.
How about things like precognition and intuitiveness? Where does all that come from?
Well, that's our natural abilities that we were born with, but we didn't know how to develop them. All of these were very natural in these other civilizations, especially in Atlantis. We know more about Atlantis than the other ones. We have these natural abilities that we developed to the maximum. We could do anything with our minds. And this is how they were able to levitate stone. They were able to mold stone. They did everything with the mind. So what you're talking about is that remnant that is still there. But when Atlantis went down, they said it was like blowing a fuse. They had to pull the plug so that we wouldn't had developed like that. We had to start all over again from the beginning in a primitive state. That's the problem when the civilization is destroyed. It has to start all over again. So that was shut off. But they said now is coming back, and it is there, and it's getting stronger in this time period. So the precognition, the intuitive, the psychic abilities are our natural abilities that are being allowed to come back. I see it happening all over the world where I go. People are becoming more psychic. They're getting these abilities back.
People are also uptight, Dolores. Have you sensed that?
No, I don't sense that at all.
Oh, my gosh. It's everywhere.
Oh, everywhere I go, the people are so wonderful. They're happy. You wouldn't believe it.
I got to start following you around.
I just came back from Turkey, which was a Muslim country, and the people were wonderful.
Did you look at the Göbekli Tepe, that ancient site, at all?
I was in Istanbul.
Okay. That's a ways from that.
Yeah, and I've been in Ephesus, but that's the coast.
What do they want? What are folks in other lands want to know about the paranormal, the supernatural?
Boy, they're really getting it. They're excited about all of this. But, I always told people, if you traveled more, there wouldn't be the wars, there wouldn't be the violence. You'd find out everybody everywhere is just like us. They are not different. Everybody wants a good job to take care of their family, and they don't want wars. They just want the same things we want. So now, though, they're beginning to open up to these things, and they're very interested in the paranormal, the metaphysics. They're very enlightened, because I said I go to China a lot. Last year I was there 3 times, and I was really surprised. The government tells us all these things about these countries. And I said, you go there and you see for yourself, it's not at all what they tell you it is. Because China, golly, they're happy, they're advanced, they're running around in brand new cars, fancy clothes, and they are really into this metaphysics. They get it. And the same way within Turkey, it was a Muslim country,
sure.
But they understood this, and they wanted more. They wanted more information.
What do you see that is happening with the world right now?
With the what?
With the world that needs to be changed. Anything?
I don't think anything needs to be changed. These people are very happy. This is why I want people to ask more questions, explore, try to get the information firsthand. Don't believe the propaganda we've been handed down. For instance, I had a client last month. I have clients that come to see me from all over the world.
Okay.
I had a client come from Africa. I've been to Johannesburg, but that's the only place, South Africa. This man came from Cameroon, and I was telling me about that. And he said, highly advanced, big cities, they have cars, they're one of the richest countries in Africa. And I said, well, all we hear about is those that are starving and having the wars and the refugees. He said, those are little pockets of people. The majority of Africa are very much like we are. Now, see, that's propaganda.
Yeah.
See what I mean?
It sure is. Well, it all comes down to, the Illuminati, the elitists who want to control everything.
Well, I say go and see for yourself. You'll find out. Russia wasn't at all what I thought, what they had led us to believe. And I've been over there many times now. I was 4 times in 1 year. And they have just now got their freedom back, and they're a little pushy, but they're happy anyway because they have all the modern conveniences. They seem a lot happier than we think.
End times.
So go and find out for yourself anyway.
What's your take on the apocalypse, end time prophecy?
There is. Oh, my gosh. Didn't we get enough of that last year when the world was supposed to end on December 21st?
Well, we knew it wasn't, but I still think there's going to be some solar event eventually. But so you don't believe in end times?
Not really, no. I wrote those 3 books on Nostradamus, and he said it depends on what man does. The decisions people make is what determines what things are going to happen. But all my life I've been hearing about the end of the world is going to happen on this date and that date.
Every civilization talks about it, Dolores.
And it never happened yet.
Not yet.
Well, December 21st.
Knock on wood, by the way.
Look how long that was talked about. 5 years before, the world's going to end on December 21st. And they were going on and on. Mayan calendar and all that, and I kept lecturing all over the world and saying it was not going to happen. Well, the December the 21st, I was in London. We had a premiere of a movie that I was in called Three Magic Words, and we did it specifically on that day when everybody says we're going to ascend, we're going to the end.
That was from Anderson's book, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I told them during the conference, even my show before I went down over there, the rest of you can sit home with your head under the covers. We're going to party. And we did. He had the movie premiere. We had a party, and it was a wonderful time, and the world did not end. So it's always fear, fear, fear.
All right, let's get back to these other dimensions before we take phone calls again.
Okay, you were wanting to know about the pyramids, too.
Yeah, but let's do a quick review.
Okay.
You say that there are hundreds of other dimensions that are out there, and each one is individual? It stands on its own?
Well, they blend together. You can't draw a line and say this is this. Now, what they're talking about when the world is ascending into the new earth, that's a bigger dimension. We are in the third dimension right now. And fourth dimension is time, so they skip that one. And they go direct to the fifth dimension. Well, we are already getting into the fifth dimension. But this is different than the other dimensions I was speaking about. Those are larger ones. I guess if you can break it down, there are many of these other smaller ones that are constantly moving and blending and shifting. So the world is not that simple that you can, the universe really, that you can draw a line saying here, here, and here. Everything is moving and melding and together all the time.
Well, I'm fascinated at the possibility that people could stumble into these other dimensions and probably not even know it.
Yeah.
Feel wandering around, lost.
Well, those are rare cases.
What if they can't come back?
Well, the Bermuda Triangle is a perfect example.
I mean, some people disappear. We have hundreds of thousands of people on this planet disappear, and nobody knows where they are.
They went into another dimension?
They might have, huh?
They very well could have.
And they can't get back.
That's the problem. That was the problem with the Bermuda Triangle. Now, I can explain the Bermuda Triangle to you, too, if you want me to do that.
And what do you think that is?
I know what it is. See, that was where Atlantis was. Now, Atlantis took up the whole world at that time. It was not just an island out in the middle of the Atlantic. That's where the main part was. But where the Bermuda Triangle was, that was part of Atlantis. And they knew how to time travel. They had perfected it. They knew how to go back and forth between dimensions. And they had a temple there in that part where they did these experiments. And they could time travel. Well, when Atlantis went down, that temple was damaged. And if you could get the mental image of like a mirror, it wasn't a mirror, but something like that was damaged and was still moving and functioning to a certain degree. And every once in a while it would flash upward toward the surface of the ocean. And anybody happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time would be sent into another place in time, because that was time travel. So they can't get back. They're stuck there in that other time. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it sure does.
It's the malfunction of a machine that was damaged when Atlantis went down.
Pyramids. Why were they made?
They're used by the ETs, but they were made by the survivors of Atlantis, because they didn't all go down at the same time. There were some that left, and they took their scrolls and their history and their abilities with them. And when they landed there, they were able to still use the mind abilities of how to levitate stone, how to mold stone. Like if you go to Peru, in Cusco, places like that, you can see how the stones are molded to fit together perfectly. They had these abilities. They couldn't teach a lot of the natives because they weren't that developed yet. But a lot of the ETs did help with the building of the pyramids, because they are definitely connected to the stars. And there's a whole lot to that. There's a lot of the places on Earth are connected with ETs too, and the stars. But the part about the King's Chamber and all of that, it does have to do with the light coming down and pointing in a certain direction. These were markers. They're so big they could be seen from outer space so that the ETs would know how to come in and land.
Could they have been energy sources as well?
Well, it's interesting. My daughter was there last year. I went on to Rome, and she went to see the pyramids, and we met up again in Rome. She said when she was inside of it, she had this strange feeling like she was inside of a machine. And that's very possible that's what it was. Well, there was something else interesting that she found. Have you ever been to the pyramids?
I have not. I have to do that.
Well, I haven't been yet, but she found something even more interesting that nobody talks about.
What's that?
Right next to the pyramids is a small museum where they have what they call solar boats. Interesting, they call them solar boats.
Solar boats?
Yes, and they're boats. And this is a desert. But these are made, she said they had one that they have reconstructed. The other ones are they're there and they're being held down by gigantic boulders.
Hold on, Dolores. Let's talk a little bit about that. You can explain it more, and we'll take phone calls on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back with Dolores Cannon here and your phone calls. Dolores, let's finish up before we go to calls. What did you mean by solar boats again?
Well, that's what they called them, and that's very strange. But it's interesting that they're sitting out there. They're in a museum now, but they have huge boulders on top of them. Now, why is that? Because they can float or fly away? I don't know. But she said the way they're made, looking like a boat, but they could never have been in water the way they're constructed. And they have a museum where they have one that they have redone. But that shows that area would have had to have water if they were real boats. And they do say that the Sphinx at one time was underwater. But even if not, why would they call them solar boats unless it's something to do with ETs? So it's an interesting concept.
Good point.
Anyway.
They sound like craft, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
They do. I want to get
that's something you never hear about when people talk about the pyramids.
No, you don't.
Egypt.
Did you investigate the ancient Vermanas at all?
Ancient what?
The Vermanas? I guess not.
Vermanas. What do you mean by that?
These were flying machines in India.
Oh, yeah, but they're the same everywhere.
They are.
It's just different types of ETs from different planets use different kinds of machines. I just didn't know what those were called.
Crop formations, one thing we haven't talked about. What are
I've
they?
Investigated those since 1992, and I know why they're there.
Who's sending them?
Well, the ETs are creating them from the other dimensions. They're made by energy. They are a language. And it's a language that's done in symbols, and it's understood by the conscious mind, the subconscious mind. The conscious mind doesn't understand it. But see, they communicate with symbols, not with words. They said it's very boring with us. We got to put one word behind the other to form a sentence, to form a paragraph. They deal in symbols, mind to mind. A symbol will contain a tremendous amount of information. So they're made there on purpose to convey information. You don't have to be in the crop circle to get the information. You just have to see the symbol. And the information is transferred to the mind on a cellular level. And then whenever you need the information, and in the times we're at now and the changing of the world, the information will be there and you won't even know where it came from. It's planted into the mind by just looking at the symbols.
Okay, back to the phones we go now. Let's go to Will in Pekin, South Carolina. Welcome to the show. Hey, Will, go ahead.
Hey, George. I'm a big fan.
Thank you, sir.
Now, hey, I'm sorry, it's Dolores. Dolores. Hey, Dolores. I've never heard of anything of Dolores until tonight, and I've actually just got off the phone with her daughter, Nancy. I've been talking to her for about an hour and a half, trying to figure out.
You're keeping her up, huh?
He's the one.
Yeah. Okay.
But the question I had, I believe I heard something around the lines that as you're growing up, there are some children that don't seem that they are all the way there until they're about 8 years old.
Well, it's not worded exactly that way, but they feel as though they're not all there.
Yeah. Well, growing up, my mother says, I just did not seem like a happy kid. I was just kind of like a docile child until I was about, 11, 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Now, personally, I don't remember anything. I remember maybe standing on a porch when I was 4 or 5 years old, real minstrel stuff. And, I don't remember anything until I was about, 10 or 11 years old.
Yes, and, this is common. I get a lot of clients who say they don't remember their childhood. Then other ones remember from the time they were a baby. So it just depends on the person.
Yeah, and, I told her, I had a dream, and a dream that I remember very specifically. I remember everything about it. Is and I'll make it short because I know I don't have much time. I'm a small child. I wake up in the middle of the night hearing people walking around in my house. So as a child, I get out of my room to check out who it is. Nobody's in my house.
Mm-hmm.
So I run to my parents' room to be like, hey, I heard somebody walking around in the house. There's nobody in my parents' room. So as a small child, I'm freaking out. I'm by myself.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, it sounds like a massive storm is happening outside of my house.
Mm-hmm.
So I step outside, and pretty much all that I remember is a big flash of light and a stove that's on my porch falling over and hitting the ground, and the noise of the stove is what wakes me up. Okay, at the time when I had this dream, I was not living in this house. When I had the dream, it was in a completely different house. The dream house, I didn't know it. Well, many years down the road, about when I turned about 15, 16, we built a house a few acres down that when, and the dreams never really reoccurred until a stove, that's the same exact stove that was in that dream, and put it on the porch.
Mm-hmm.
And then wait a minute. This was the porch and the stove that was in my dream when I was like 5 years old. I said, This house and porch and stove didn't even exist. I said, now,
Yeah. You were able to see into the future, but the dreams, a lot of dreams are that way. They're precognitive. And some people do have dreams that tell them what's going to happen in the future. So you were just able to do that during a dream. So it's real. It really happened.
And that's what your daughter had told me, said that it seemed that I had seen something that happened in the future. But, I mean, how do I know if it's happened already or, or if it was just a dream, or can I prepare, is there a way I can see it coming, or, is there anything, any kind of insight on that dream that you could give me?
Well, you've already made the insight. It told you the future. Then years later, it came true. The important thing is that you remembered the dream, and it happened, and you were able to say, yeah, I remember, I've had that dream way back then.
Thanks, Will, for calling. Sometimes how you put your keys on the table and you go to get them, you can't find them.
Yeah.
They're just not there. And then you walk around and you come back and there they are.
Yeah, they've gone into the other dimension and back again.
Does somebody put them back or what?
No, they just flew into another dimension. In another dimension, the same table was there you had your keys there, but then you walked into the other dimension where the table was there but not the keys. I told you they're all very slightly different in some of these dimensions.
So is it the human walking into the other dimension, or is it the key that kind of slides into the other dimension?
I think it would be the person, wouldn't it?
I would think.
Because a lot of people have told me they have objects, big objects, that they knew they were in one place and they'd go back and they were gone. Then they come back and they're back again. So it must make more sense that the person would be going back and forth between dimensions. When I do something like that, if I lose something, I say, hey, guys, bring it back. I need it. And it will usually appear before very long.
Okay, next up, we go to Lincoln, Nebraska. Max with us, east of the Rockies. Hello, Max. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, George and Dolores. How are you?
Fine, sleepy, but we're fine.
Good. Hey, my mom has been recently diagnosed with Alzheimer's, but I think she's still sharp as a tack. And whenever I talk to her and she's watching TV, whether it be a golf tournament, football game, or a TV show, she swears that it's a rerun.
Mm-hmm.
Why would that be? And she has seen it before.
Yeah, well, that's deja vu, too. But now you said she has Alzheimer's?
Well, she's been diagnosed early Alzheimer's.
Early Alzheimer's. See, this is what I do now. I'm mostly focused on the healing part of my work. And I'm teaching my classes all over the world to show people how to do the instant healing. And one thing that has come up, and I don't want you to feel bad if I say this, but when they get Alzheimer's, it means they're ready to leave. They're only holding on because of the family and the people around them. They don't want to leave all at once. So it's a gradual thing. Now, I don't want that to bother you if I say that.
Oh, no, I think it's quite adequate. She's ready to go.
But sometimes it's the family, that they stay for the family. But seeing these reruns, it is like she's slipping back and forth between dimensions. Her mind is already in those places.
Sure.
But, she's ready to leave, and it may take her a while before she's ready to leave the family and think you're able to take care of yourself and all of that.
Dolores, what's the part of all of this that would be or is the most difficult for people to comprehend, to accept?
Oh, I don't know. All of these concepts I've come up with now, they're hard for them to understand. But my work now is convincing people that you should never be sick. You should never have anything wrong with you. You should be perfect health. If you are sick, you have created it yourself, made yourself sick. And people say, well, I don't want to be sick. But if the mind is that powerful to make yourself sick, you can also heal yourself. We find out, why did you do it to yourself? Now, that's kind of hard for people to understand, but they're getting it now all over the world. I've already trained thousands of people, and even doctors are using this in their practice. So it's kind of hard to believe that your mind could be that powerful to control your body that way.
But we know it can be.
Oh, I know it. I see miracles every day in my office. So I have to turn the belief system around, especially the medical profession, that you don't need medicine. You can do it yourself with your own mind. But there's so many mysteries out there that, a lot of people have trouble believing it. They're just stuck in day-to-day life. But there's tremendous mysteries everywhere. We can't even begin to comprehend it all.
Let's go to LaShawn in Shreveport, Louisiana. First-time caller. Hi there.
Hello. Hi, Dolores.
Hi.
Hi, George.
Hello there.
I was just calling because I was listening to you when you were saying that, there are people that don't really feel like if they're from here and they belong somewhere else.
Yeah.
I've always felt that way, I'm a little nervous.
I hear this all the time, so join the club.
But I'm 36, and, sometimes I'll have dreams, and I'll see beings. They'll speak with me, and it's like their mouth isn't moving, but they're talking to me, and I'm hearing them. I'm hearing this voice, and I would say my vocabulary isn't the greatest, but it's like I'll wake up and there is a word in my head, and I'm not sure what this word is, so I have to go to the dictionary, look in the dictionary, and see what this word means. And I'm like, wow, okay, I don't know what that means, but a few of the words that when I woke up and I looked in the dictionary, apprehensive. I wasn't sure what exactly is apprehensive, and it's fearful of what may be coming. And I'm like, where did that come from?
Mm.
And then there was another one. It's like he told me I need to be expeditious. I looked that up, get the true meaning. I'm like, okay, prompt and efficient, speedy.
Yeah.
And then when you said, for as, being here and belonging somewhere else, there's another word I had wrote down that I woke up with. It was expatriate.
Expatriate.
Uh-huh.
Okay, what does that mean?
And a person who leaves his own country to live in another.
Oh, expatriate, yeah.
I guess, I'm not pronouncing it right, but that's what I looked up for a word that sound pretty much like that, and that's it. And I'm like, wow, maybe this is it. So I just wondered about that.
Well, let me tell you something that most people don't know. Every night when you go to sleep, you go out of your body.
That's right.
Everybody. Because the body is the only thing that gets tired and needs to rest. And your soul would get awful tired of sitting around waiting for you to wake up so it can continue on with its life. So while the body is asleep, you're off having all kinds of adventures. You're going to the spirit side. You're going to other planets. You're going anywhere you want to go. So to me, this would be you're going back to the craft, where the ETs are, and you're having conversations with them and advice. So to me, that would make perfect sense. But you don't remember a lot of it when you come back and wake up in the morning.
That's the secret, to wake up in that dream state, that astral state.
What they call, what they call it? It's on the tip of my tongue. A dreaming. I'll think of it.
Lucid dreaming.
Lucid dreaming. Yeah, whenever you wake up, you know you're dreaming in the middle of a dream.
That's right. And you can control it sometimes when you do that.
Yeah, and the minute you start controlling it, though, you usually wake up. But you are connected with your soul, and your body is always connected by the silver cord until you die and that cord is severed.
That's right.
So in the morning, when you have to come back to the body, you're more or less reeled back into the body again. So I'd be very positive that's what's happening to you, that you are visiting with your friends on the ship during the night when you think you're asleep.
Dolores, I got to tell you are one of the most enlightened persons I've ever chatted with.
Okay. One of my problems, if you want to call it that, is that I don't ever forget anything.
No, you have an incredible memory.
Maybe that's really why they gave me this job. I don't know.
Let's go to Noah in Morgantown, West Virginia. Hello, okay. Noah. Go ahead.
Good morning. Thanks for taking my call. And I have to agree, Dolores, I've listened to Coast to Coast for about 5 years. I'm a current avid listener. And you are very enlightened, and I love everything you've had to say. It's funny that as I sit here and listen, I call with an original comment, and everything seems to pertain to what's going on, not only with me, but I think a lot of the listeners as well. So, thank you for being on here and just sharing with us all that you have to know. So thank you for that. But, George, real quick, and kind of off topic, when I tuned in, she was talking about ETs, Dolores, and being from somewhere else and feeling out of place. And it reminded me of the Council of Elohim.
Yes, very similar to that.
Okay, all right. And so now do you think that might be two sides to perhaps the same coin? Maybe a different perception of how we look at things?
Yeah. What do you think, Dolores?
I'm not sure the question. What is the question, George?
Well, his
voice was distorted.
Look at the side of a coin, right? You got heads, tails, two different sides, but it's the same coin.
Yeah.
Is that what life is all about?
Oh, life is more complicated than that, but it is all with your perception, how you perceive things. And, if you see it as negative, it's going to be negative. If you see it as positive, it's going to be positive, the way you perceive it. But everything in life is you have planned, you have put here, and you've done it to learn a lesson from it. That's what I always tell people. Everybody has bad things happen in their life. That's normal.
That's human.
Life.
That's life.
But I always say, what did you learn from it? And if you learned even one thing from it, that was the reason you had the experience. And other people, they'll say, well, I didn't learn anything from it. It was just a bad experience. If you did say you didn't learn anything from it, guess what? You got to come back and do it again. Same people, same circumstance. You failed that grade in school. You've got to take it over again.
That's true. Dolores, we're going to come back and take some final phone calls with you. Dolores Cannon with us. Dolores, when you speak at events, what are people primarily interested in? What do they want to know?
Oh, they want to know everything. That's the amazing thing about it. Sometimes I've gone to an event. I'm supposed to speak for 3 hours. One place, I think it was San Diego, I didn't get out of there for 6 hours. They just kept asking more and more questions, wanting to know more and more. But lately, in the last year or so, I've been speaking about mostly the 3 waves of volunteers and the changes the Earth is going through. But they're interested in all phases of metaphysics. And a lot of it is young people. I'm thinking it's the Internet generation. It has opened up the metaphysics to a whole new age group that we didn't have before. And they're really eating this up. They're fascinated by metaphysics and the unknown and unexplained.
Well, it's something that affects all of us, too. I mean, I think the bottom line here, the quest is what happens when we die. I think everybody's obsessed with that, Dolores.
Yeah, but I found the answer, and there's no problem there.
Are you comforted to know what happens?
Oh, yeah, because I wrote a whole book about it. The book is Between Death and Life, and it tells what it's like when you die, how you feel when you die, where you go on the other side, all the places you can go to, the whole procedure, and then the whole full circle as you make your plans and come back again.
Did you ever have any doubts?
No, because I've gotten this information through so many people. People say it makes them feel so much better to know, especially if they have someone dying in their family or if they have somebody that has died, they know they're perfectly fine. They're on this beautiful spirit world.
Okay, to the phones we go. Final calls. Ron in Sacramento, California. Okay. Hey, Ronnie, go ahead.
Hi, how you doing, George?
Good, Ron.
First-time caller, but I used to listen to Coast when Art Bell was driving his Geo Metro from Pahrump to Las Vegas.
Thank you.
That's a long time. But anyhow, I got something going on that happened 33 years ago, and I've never been able to explain. I'm driving my truck late at night and fell asleep behind the wheel. And the truck jumped the curb, and about that time I woke up going, oh, this is going to be a big one.
This is it, yeah.
Goodbye. And the next thing I know, I'm laying up on the side of the road. There's nobody around. I was alive. My truck was rolled over in the ditch and on fire. And I just went, what just happened? I had no idea. Of course, I hadn't, 33 years ago, I'd never heard of a guardian angel. But I think now that's what it was.
Oh, you had a good one. He was really on the job.
Yeah, working overtime.
Oh, man. I had to have flown out the back window because, like I said, the truck was upside down, the top was crushed down to the bed, and it was on fire.
Without that help, there's no way you would have gotten out of that one.
Exactly.
No, they have miraculous ways of doing it, so you got a good one.
I love that story.
I hope you thanked them.
Forever.
Because they like to be thanked.
Do these guardian angels get any special things? Like, remember the movie It's a Wonderful Life? Clarence got his wings.
Oh, yeah. That was a good one.
Saved good old George Bailey. I mean, do those things happen? Do they get rewarded?
Oh, I don't know if you'd say rewarded or not, but they may give you more difficult cases down the road. You start out with an easy case as a guardian angel, and then you get a little more difficult. But I don't know, maybe it's just the self-satisfaction that you know you've done a good job.
Let's go next.
It's a good story with the wings and everything.
Let's go to Ray Fohio in Fontana, California, first-time caller. Hey, Ray.
Yes, George?
Hi.
Yeah, what's up, man? I'm 23 years old. I just got into your show like a couple years ago, but it's a good show, man.
Thank you,
I
pal.
appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
And I wanted to tell you guys my personal experience. I had this experience 3 times throughout my life. When you're talking about how your body, your soul leaves your body when you go to sleep. I'll go. I'll be not. It's like that transition. It's like this happened to me like 2 weeks ago. I was going to sleep and I was listening to the Howard Stern show late at night on YouTube. And I was just, of course, I was conscious, like, listening to the show. And that moment when you're laying down and going to sleep, so, like, you're transitioning into sleep. And I open my eyes. I open my eyes, and then, like, my eyelids feel real heavy. And I'm looking around my room, and then everything is perfect. I thought I was awake, just real tired, And then I just creep myself out. I think about, like, a certain thought goes in my head about aliens and stuff, so I creep myself out. So I try to get out of my bed. And I get out of my bed, and then I fall slowly. Like real slow, and I bounced like 2 times on the floor.
Well, what happened to you was you woke up in your astral state, that state that Dolores has been talking about. And I found, Dolores, that jolting feeling when you hit your body You're coming back in, and then you're awake. You're aware of it.
Well, also people talk about being paralyzed and not being able to move.
Sleep paralysis. That's right.
That's because the connection, especially they get paralyzed when they're trying to wake up. They aren't all the way back into the body yet, where the brain, mind connection and everything is hooked up to the mechanics of the body.
That's got to be a horrible feeling.
Well, it is. It's scary, but if they just relax for a minute, they'll be back in the body. It usually doesn't happen unless there's a sudden noise in the house that wakes you up before you're really back in the body.
We've got Robert now in Morgantown, West Virginia, wildcard line. Robert, you're on with Dolores Cannon.
Hey, how you doing, George?
Good, Rob.
I have a question for Dolores. I'd like to get really specific and ask her, what's the deal with the aliens? Why are you disseminating this information about aliens, calling them in one book the custodian? You seem to be a cheerleader for the aliens, saying that they're doing good. When we had, Dr. Lear on earlier in the week talking about alien implants, you're making up excuses saying that they could be healing implants, that they're looking out for our own good. But putting implants in us against our will, it doesn't seem like they're looking out for our own good.
It's not against your will. It's not against your will.
Well, could you tell me a little bit? I'd like to get this, on record. Do you think that the aliens are a force for good?
Oh, I know they are. They're not allowed to harm a human being. They've been watching us since the beginning of the time. Did you hear the beginning of the program when I was saying you are probably one of them, and they're just taking care of their own people?
Right, and I understand what the aliens represent at a subconscious level. That's the other thing, is that they represent people of European descent. They see them as the invaders. They see them as the invaders often.
No.
They see them as, just different among them. You're saying that that's not true at a subconscious level. You're saying
it's not true on any level. No, I know Dr. Lear. He's a good friend of mine, and he's been taking these implants out for a long time because for him it's proof that the implants exist. But the implants are in there for a specific reason to help the body. The ones who don't know this information are assuming they're in there for negative reasons.
Dolores, don't forget that Twilight Zone show, To Serve Man.
Oh, I know. I remember that
A cookbook. Maybe they're going to eat us. Dr. David Jacobs, though, goes against the grain.
I know. I know him also very well.
He thinks there's something evil going on.
I know. He says the implants are there, so they will be triggered in the future to turn us into zombies so that we will be working. The ETs will help. We will help the ETs take over the world. That's his theory. The thing is, in one of my books, the ETs said, why do they always say we're here to take over the world? It's ours. It always has been. We can't do anything as bad to you as you do to yourself.
Idana in Johannesburg, California, west of the Rockies. Hey there, Idana.
Hey, George. Hey, way to go on all your projects, man. You're such a good egg.
And Dolores,
my source is our Savior Jesus Christ. I'm wondering, have they communicated anything to you on their views or anything on him?
Great question. Dolores?
And I've written 2 books on Jesus. You don't know all of the books I've written.
You've written more books. We can't even remember all the titles, Dolores.
I know. I wrote 2 books in the early days on the missing parts of Jesus that are not even in the Bible.
Do any of these volunteers, these ET souls, do they talk about Jesus or spirituality like that?
Oh, they talk about spirituality because they're more spiritual than you could ever imagine. But see, Jesus was a teacher on earth. He was sent here to teach us how to live. They probably have their own teachers on their world. But to them, he would just be like a very wise teacher.
But they're believers, right?
Oh, they believe in spirituality because they are closer to God than we will ever be. They understand it. They said, we're the only planet in the universe that forgets when we come into our life. We forget our contracts. We forget where we came from God. They don't forget their connections. They know they come from God. we have to rediscover all these things on our own and stumble back to the truth when they're known it all along.
Let's go next to Nashville, Tennessee. Wesley's there. Hey, Wesley.
Hi, George. Hi, Dolores. How you doing?
Good.
Hey, I wanted to ask Dolores. I called in early a few weeks ago about my concept of multiverses and how they might be interacting with different dimensions of space and time. I wanted to see what Dolores thought about it. That you say that there's possibly thousands of different dimensions, like alternate realities, different versions of this universe.
Oh, yeah.
Slightly different. My concept is that, physicists think that we possibly have 11, maybe 13 spatial dimensions in this universe. But we look at time as being one-dimensional, as just having a straight line that we can move, that you go forward and backwards on. What if time actually had multiple dimensions just like space, so that time actually had not only length, but depth and height, and whatever other dimensions there are beyond that, and that the different combinations of spatial dimensions and temporal dimensions could create literally trillions of different varieties of reality, but they all exist in the same single universe.
They do, but there is no such thing as time. Remember that. Time is an illusion that has been created by man to explain the things that happen. There actually is no such thing as time. But yes, for instance, I can explain this. Whenever you think of you try to make a decision, I'll go to the bigger part. Whenever you have a time in your life when you make a decision, should I go this way or should I go that way?
That's right.
You're at a crossroads.
The road not taken.
Yeah, should I get a divorce? Should I stay with this person? Should I quit my job? Should I get another job? We're always faced with decisions, and we have to make up our mind which decision are we going to do. Well, we decide to go this way. What happens to the other decision that we put the energy into trying to make up our mind? What happens to that energy? That also becomes a reality, and another you is living out that other decision, other reality. Now, that's the simple version. And then anytime you have any decision to make it more complicated, it splits again and again and again and again. So you end up with thousands of you living all these different possibilities in all these other realities. We focus on the one we're in right now. We couldn't handle the others. I've had some people who realize they're in more than one dimension, and it can get very complicated. I was living over here in another life.
What do you think of doppelgangers?
Well, we all are supposed to have a double somewhere in the world. And I know I did see mine one time. She was a woman who looked exactly like me. So to me, it's just someone who looks like you. They think it's a spirit type, but who knows?
Who knows? Skype caller Victor in Los Angeles. Hey, Victor, go ahead.
How you doing? Do I sound clear?
Yep, perfect.
Okay. Wow, just listening to the show, it's amazing how...
It's a mind-boggler, isn't it?
Yeah, all of these different types of subjects he's going into, I've experienced in my life. But I'll just name a few, okay? I feel, when you mentioned volunteering, I'm still on the air, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I do have a recall going back before I came into this life, and it was just like one of those deja vu, but not in this life, but not even a previous life, but between lives.
Yeah.
And, it reminded me of the most, the Green Lantern. I was among a host of beings in some type of moonlit type atmosphere.
Yeah.
And who wants to go to Earth? And I was the only one.
I've heard it before, so it's very similar, and your description of the place sounds exactly correct.
He'd be perfect for some regression hypnosis.
Oh, yeah, he would relive the whole thing.
Of every, let's say, 10 people that you hypnotize, how many of them do you think are volunteers?
I'm getting more and more of them now, especially the younger people. I still get some that have karma to work out. They're the ones with a lot of problems going on in their life. The older people are definitely going back to normal past lives, and they have karma with different types. They're carrying around a lot of what I call the baggage and the garbage. And ends up making them sick, too. They're holding on to things they don't need to hold on. Does. But a lot of the younger ones that come in, they don't go to a past life. They go to these other places, either back to God or to these other ET experiences. So I'm getting more and more of them. So it doesn't surprise me anymore when they come in. It surprises them because they're not expecting it.
Sure does. Dolores, we could go on forever with the amount of people that are calling that want to talk to you.